Good morning and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Martin Luther labeled it among the true and noblest books of the New Testament, saying further that if it were the only book of the New Testament you had, you could find in it depicted in masterly fashion how faith in Christ overcomes sin, death, and hell, and gives life, righteousness, and salvation. Wow. You hear something like that and you think that Luther must be talking about one of the Gospels, perhaps John, or one of the letters of Paul that spells out the basics of the faith, something like Romans or Galatians. But no, Luther was commenting on the small book of 1 Peter near the back of our New Testament. 1 Peter? Most of us may have only encountered 1 Peter when we passed by it while looking for something else, perhaps the nearby book of Revelation. It's a book of the Bible we notice seldom and typically read even less. And yet, if we take Luther's word for it, here in this short book in our Bible is a rich treasure trove of insight, instruction, and inspiration. That may be true of several of those tiny books near the end of the New Testament. We don't notice them often, and even our Sunday morning readings feature them only sparingly. The truth is that they may be minor in length, but they are not minor in message. So this week I want to give something of an introduction to these small books that we tend to be so unfamiliar with. I'm talking about the books of 1 Peter, 2 Peter, Jude, and 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. My goal is to introduce you to these books, to let you meet and greet them, giving you the background and an overview. Perhaps in other weeks we can delve into their text and meaning more in depth. This week, let's shake hands and get to know these guests in the home of our hearts. All of these books are considered Catholic letters. That doesn't mean Roman Catholic, but rather the more basic use of the word Catholic, which means universal. You see, while Paul's letters were written to specific congregations and addressed specific issues going on in that congregation, the letters of Peter, Jude, and John are more general writings meant to address the whole church at large. Paul wrote letters to specific churches that were then shared with other churches because people found meaning in them. However, these books were written specifically to be shared, to address issues of faith and life common to every Christian. Now, interestingly, when the New Testament was being assembled and what was to be included or not was considered, 1 Peter and 1 John easily made the cut. But for a long time, 2 Peter and 2nd and 3rd John and Jude were questioned as to whether or not they belonged in our Bible. A couple of other things that you might find interesting. 2 Peter is so different from 1 Peter that almost everyone assumes they were written by different authors. Jude is in many ways identical to 2 Peter, or at least we can say that the two books borrow heavily from one another. Finally, for today, there are some things the books by Peter and Jude share. They are written in the standard letter form of the day, and they were written in the last half of the 1st century, at least 30 years after Jesus died and rose. That means they were written in a time when the church was getting established. All of them address the issue of the place of the Christian in the wider society. They were a minority group, and it is obvious that they had tension with the rest of the society. How does one live out faith in a setting like that? Maybe these books are pretty timely for us today. So that's enough for now. Tomorrow, get ready to meet 1 Peter. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.